I always say to people, you get the first 3 years right, you can relax. If you don't get the first 3 years right, you will be practicing remedial parenting for decades. Parents are taught not to pick up their kids when they're crying. Let them sleep it out. What lesson do they get? Their emotions don't matter. Children have a need to attach. They have a need to connect with somebody, because without that connection, they don't survive. In the hunter-gatherer bands where human beings evolved, those attachments were with adults. And not just one adult or two adults, but with a whole set of nurturing adults. Now in our culture, we've deprived the kids of the parental presence for the most part. And the child's brain can't handle an attachment void. And in the absence of the parent or the nurturing adult, the child will fill that void with the peer group. And now peers become their models and their mentors and their templates for how to be, how to walk, and how to talk. And as that happens, the kids push away from the parents because they're more minded to belong to the peer group, which has different values from the parents. And the kid's brain can't handle that competition. So the brain of the child will actually choose the peer group over the parent group. And where that goes, you can see on Facebook. And you can see it in the teenage gangs. And you can see it in the increasing frustration of parents who've lost the power to parent. Because parents think that their power to parent comes from the fact that they have the responsibility and the strength and the wisdom. It doesn't come from that. The power to parent comes from the desire of the child to belong to you. When the child is driven to belong to the peer group, because we've taken him out of his natural context, we lose the authority, so we become authoritarian. And the more authoritarian we become, the more pressure we put on them, the more they resist. And now we label them with oppositional defiant disorder, and we call them bad and naughty kids. All they're doing is acting out their attachment dynamics. The essential template for the emotional development of the child, as well as for the brain's healthy physiological development, is a nurturing relationship with a mutually responsive adult. That means that every time I use the relationship against the child will actually undermine the child's development, because it makes the child insecure, and kids in state of insecurity are in defensive flight or fight mode, in which mode they don't learn anything. They just are defending. So I have a 2-year-old who's angry, and most psychologists and parenting experts will tell you, time out. In other words, what they're telling you is withdraw the relationship from the child as a way of threatening the child, and that threat will make the child comply with you. Well, the child may temporarily comply with you, but what have you taught her? You've taught her that the relationship is conditional, that they're only acceptable to you if they please you, that relationships are unstable and unreliable, that you're not available for them when they're most upset. And you say to them, when you're most unhappy, that's when I'm least available to you. And this is how parents are taught to parent. Just the opposite of what any loving parent wants to teach. I was always waiting for my kids to grow older when I could intellectually engage them, and now we'll have something in common. But the sheer state of being, I could never achieve with them. So the communication happens on a much deeper level. The real relationship doesn't depend on words. It depends on the capacity to be with. I welcome your presence. And I welcome you to exist in my presence. And I'm overjoyed to have you in my presence. That's what the child needs from the parent. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist teacher, says that the greatest gift a parent can give to a child is his or her own happiness. So I tell parents to really look after their emotional lives, to examine their stresses in their lives, and in those first few years, make the child's comfort and happiness and security their primary goal. Whatever life goals they have, put them on hold as best you can, and really create an environment where the child is connected and secure. And that child then will be set for life pretty much. And if you face stresses or anxieties or depression, deal with them as quickly as you can and get all the support you can get, and look at what's causing it, because under those circumstances, your child will be affected negatively. It used to be thought that babies are sort of blank slates on which you can write anything you want. Well, that's not true. What is true is that babies are born with tremendous potential. Tremendous potential for self-realization, but also for self-negation. One of the things that have been shown in research is that attachment patterns of the parent are predictably passed on to the child. So you can do an interview with a prospective parent a couple of years before the child is born and predict how that yet unconceived child will respond to attachment issues at 1 year of age. And then that'll predict how that child, when grow up, will exhibit attachment patterns as an adult. So it really is highly conditioned by the multi-generational emotional transactions that occur in a family. The human brain is not strictly an organ that develops according to genetics. In fact, nothing is. As I gave the example of the seed, I mean, if you want that seed to grow, you have to plant it in the right kind of ground with the right conditions of light and irrigation and nutrition. Well, the human brain also develops in response to the environment, especially the human brain, because most of our brain growth occurs after birth and not before. About 80% happens after birth, and much of that in the first 3 years of life. So by the end of the third year of life, the human brain is something like 80 or 90% adult size, whereas the human body is about 18% adult size. So those first 3 years are hugely important. Now, which circuits develop and which do not depends very much on environmental input. So a child who doesn't see light, they'll be blind after a few years, because the visual circuits need light waves for their development. They just don't otherwise. Our capacity for intimate relationships, for connection, for self-regulation, for attention, for stress regulation, these all depend on crucial brain circuits. These brain circuits require the right conditions as well. Right conditions are the presence of non-stressed, non-depressed, emotionally available, consistently available parenting caregivers. We're not talking about does mother and dad love the child. That you can take for granted in most cases. Are the intentions good? That's always there. We're just talking about how stressed or distracted or depressed the parents may be. And the more they are, the more that'll interfere with the child's healthy brain development unless they get the right support.